Hello, I'm Howard Green. Well, Sarkozy is out, Hollande is in. France voted against the austerity drive led by Nicolas Sarkozy and German Chancellor Angela Merkel by electing Socialist Party candidate François Hollande. He is France's first socialist president in 17 years and promises to focus on growth rather than the spending cuts that have been touted as the cure for heavily indebted European countries. He has even promised to renegotiate Europe's grand fiscal compact, but Hollande may find it difficult to implement policies that deviate from Merkel's push for austerity. As Europe's only healthy large economy, German support is needed for any type of change, and Germany's chancellor has made it clear that her country will not soften its demands. To discuss what a Hollande-Merkel relationship could look like and to find out what the election of a socialist president in France really means for Europe, we're joined now by Alex Dershevsky. He is a founding partner with Recovery Partners, and we welcome you back to the program. Good to have you with us.
Thank you very much, Howard.
So, first of all, this was, I guess, expected. Stock markets have not reacted too negatively to this. What's been the bond market reaction?
Well, bonds have ticked up. It was buy bunds, sell everything else. It was basically the spread trade of the day. But it's not going to shake out because we don't know exactly where the policies are headed. And it goes beyond France because a big part of this is Greece as well and Spain, and we've got upcoming elections in some other countries. So, but this is, what, the seventh leader that's fallen during the crisis?
First socialist prime minister since Francois Mitterrand in 1995.
Not surprised that it's someone who's preaching sharing, caring, and fighting against outside vested interests has gotten elected. That these people are appealing to those type of populist messages. And in the case of Hollande, he had a very large target in Sarkozy because the economy has just been doing terribly. And huge dissatisfaction amongst the electorate, high unemployment. Jobs picture no good, deficit 18-20% of GDP, very tough situation.
So how do you think this changes the relationship between France and Germany, potentially?
Well, he's calling himself Mr. Normal, but I think there's going to be anything but a normalization of the relationship. Merkel and Sarkozy had a very tight compact. They agreed on a lot of things.
It took a while, though. She wasn't crazy about it.
It took a while, and there's got some historical roots there. Given what's happened between France and Germany over the last 150 years. But at the end of the day, they were cooperating. They did have a plan in place. That looks in grave jeopardy right now, and it looks like. Yeah,
Do you think so?
Yeah, I think Merkel's going to be increasingly isolated. She's got her own political problems at home, and they're going to be facing an election later as well. And so the populist stirrings in Germany are starting to militate against the austerity. They're starting to militate against a lot of the moves that they were making. And in fact, this is not at all surprising because when I sat with you at the lake at the G8, G20 meetings 2 years ago, we talked about the fact that getting these austerity plans to bite and gain traction is extremely difficult because you got to cross these electoral cycles, and the austerity programs generate a lot of popular discontent. So it's hard for politicians to maintain focus and maintain traction with these programs. So the fact that Sarkozy is out and they're now talking about taking a different tack is completely unsurprising.
So if the electorate turns a little bit more to the left in Germany, and she responds to that, then won't she find herself more or less aligned with this fellow from France? He's not going to be extreme.
But then what we have to ask ourselves is how are the markets going to react? We've still got a number of countries in crisis. We don't have a solution to the fact that many of Europe's banks are insolvent. The Spaniards just came out with a new recap plan for their banks. I personally don't think it's credible. You've still got all that stuff in the background, all of those financial dislocations for which there are no solutions yet in view. And given the fact that we've now had this break, Merkel-Sarkozy going one way, now we've got Hollande coming in with some uncertainty about Merkel's political position, it throws the whole process into a great deal of uncertainty again. You know, it was only 3-4 months ago they were talking about a grand fiscal union, a pact, joint and several liability for bond issues, euro bonds, true euro bonds being issued. That's all off the table right now.
But Hollande is calling for Eurobonds.
He may be calling, but he's not going to get them. Not if he continues on his track. You see, he's saying one thing, but he can't. There's no way anybody's going to go for a fiscal pact with the leader of a country that says he's not going to respect the plans that were made earlier, and he's not going to respect the push to austerity and to get his budget situation in order.
It's not just France now.
The market's not going to take those bonds because they're not going to believe that the financial backing is solid.
Well, what about Greece? Because it's not just France we're talking about here now. The things are.
I'm sure there are a number of politicians in Greece that would love to be in on some Eurobonds as well, but the market's not going to take these things. Greece right now is in huge disarray. There's no one party that has come out of the election with a clear majority, and even the two largest parties, the PASOK and the New Democracy, between them in the new parliament will only have about 141 seats out of 300. PASOK was in power. They've dropped out of a majority position into having 41 seats, and the New Democracy people under Samaras have about 101 seats. The other parties combined, there are a lot of parties that sort of rose up. Some of them are very far right. Over 50% of the popular vote voted for non-mainstream parties, and some of these folks have very extreme views on what an appropriate solution might be.
The extreme right, the neo-Nazi party.
There are those guys, and then there's the extreme left, the communists. They're still hanging around. I think they got 21 seats.
So, what happens then there with this kind of political situation? Do you see Greece simply exiting the euro? The likelihood of Greece exiting the euro increasing now?
I don't think that you'll get sufficient consensus within Greece to take that type of a decision. But I do think it's far more probable that folks outside of Greece within the EU, ECB, IMF, Troika decide that it's too risky to keep them in. And they might start a negotiation for getting them out. I think that's the likely outcome here, looking ahead 3 to 6 months.
So what about the euro over the next year then?
Well, these currencies are all like dirty shirts. And you're going to have periodic flights to quality to the U.S. dollar. I think the euro over the medium term will weaken. If there is serious negotiation or talk of serious negotiation to get Greece out and to resolve some of these banking solvency issues, I think the euro could be reasonably well supported. I mean, there's an opportunity to change market sentiment here. Whether the leadership at the Troika will seize that opportunity and whether we'll have enough political consensus within these various countries to go along with a good plan remains to be seen. But there is an opportunity to still save this situation. It's not lost.
We will continue this conversation, I'm sure. Alex, many thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much, Howard.
Alex Drashevsky of Recovery Partners. More on the elections in the Eurozone right after this. Please stay with us.